Hey there, Martin here, and hope you're well. I've just got off of a call with one of my clients, and I thought I'd just hop in and just give you some insights because I think this might help some of you. Because these are things that happen to everybody, and sometimes there are really simple things, and this is the joy of what I do. In all amongst all the chaos that all of us find ourselves in at some point, there are usually simple things we can do that can really help and reduce that chaos or perceived chaos. So I've got a client, and for confidentiality reasons, I'm not going to obviously give names and all that kind of stuff, but they own a business in financial services. Okay, so the business owner, and it's a great business. They've got a great team doing great work, really serving well, really standing out. They've got a great family, but right now they're going through a really tough time. In fact, it's their most challenging time professionally they've ever had in their long, illustrious career. And that's tough. And it's really affecting their health. They are really stressed, really anxious, worrying all the time. They're paranoid. They are catastrophizing. People recognize this? Something goes wrong, life hits us, something doesn't quite happen, and then we catastrophize the outcome, the potential action. We tell ourselves a story that, oh my goodness, it's going to be a terrible outcome. I'm going to lose everything. It's all gone to pot. And that makes us more stressed. That makes us more worried. We then make it about us as to, oh, it must be my fault, and I'm not good enough, and what am I doing, and I should just quit, and and ring a bell? Now, I've been there. So the reason I know about this stuff is because I have been there. I spent 20 years catastrophizing, worrying, being anxious, being stressed, being paranoid. And I know that never ends well. So it's a real privilege to be able to help people really quickly in these sorts of moments. And there were 3 things that came out of today's session. There was so much we covered, but they've gone away to do 3 things. And I think these 3 things might help you. So I'm going to share them with you. So if you have got life has hit you, something's not working out, something's happening, and it's causing you that pain, that stress, that overwhelm, that anxiety. If that's the case, there are 3 things that we're going to do, because we've identified kind of in general what it is. And very often that's the place to start. What actually is it that's causing it? Because sometimes it's not as obvious as it is at other times. And even when you've got, it's this thing, that thing could be really, really big. And in this case, with my client, the thing that's causing the stress actually is complicated. There's a lot of different people involved. There's different organizations involved. It's all kinds of manner of things going on. So it's actually quite complicated. So we can say, it's that thing, but what you often find is maybe it's not the whole thing, it's just certain things, certain elements. And they identified one today in the call, a really simple one that was affecting them the first moment they walked into the office every day. Okay, well, if we know that, we can do something about it. So one of the first things to do, and what my client is going to do, is just over the next week and between our calls, just going to keep an eye. When they have a wobble, they're just going to make a note. What's the time? What's the day? What's the time? Where are they? And what was it that's caused the wobble? Capture that in the moment. Don't have to write War and Peace. Just capture it in the moment. Now, why would you do that? Because then you identify patterns. Sometimes you realize you're actually only having these wobbles in certain environments, or sometimes at certain times of the day, or sometimes on certain days, and with certain things. So that big thing that's got 97 component parts, actually it's just these 3 things, and they keep cropping up. And whenever I get that, this is how I react, and I feel it in my stomach and my chest. And so we're going to just monitor over the next week to see what it is that's causing the wobbles, but also have that extra information. It's so simple, but so important in then identifying what you can do with it. Now, the other thing, we've identified that there's this big thing that kind of is causing this challenge for them. So on on a big level, I've just asked them to consider how they reframe that thing. Because when they just talk about it, think about it, they go into panic mode. So what we've got to do is, and that's just an emotional reaction. The facts, actually this person is, my client is in a really good place with this thing, but the fear of a catastrophizing end to it is causing all this panic in the moment. But they're actually in control. They just kind of forget it because this happens and then so what we want to do is just reframe it. So when we're talking and thinking about this thing, how can we do it in a different way with a different energy? And one of my mentors, Tony Robbins, taught me this about how you just reframe it. So somebody, same situation, somebody might be like, I can't believe they've done that. Somebody else might be going, what on earth? And the other person sat in the corner is like, well, that's a little bit inconvenient. And it's actually a true story that Tony tells, and it's hilarious. But it shows that the facts and the situation can be the same, but three different people will approach the reaction very differently. The person that can remain calm, that can use a different language, go, I'm a bit peeved. Oh, that's a bit inconvenient. Oh. If you reframe the wording, and if you can use ridiculous words like, it's fascinating, and you can bring it with an energy and an action that's over the top and ridiculous, that almost makes you smile, you break the pattern of, goes into the stomach, goes into the chest, goes into the head, that, if we can instantly go, right, instead of responding like that, always coming on, right, I go, that is fascinating. I can't wait to learn more. Right? You've got a completely different energy, and it sounds ridiculous, and it will feel ridiculous, but my God, does it work? And it's fully in your control, and it takes practice. So we're just going to do some reframing, simple reframing, but really over-exaggerated reframing, so that we can break what is actually a really habitual response, a catastrophization response, when anything kind of seems to threaten them or goes wrong or is uncomfortable. So we're going to break that. So the first thing, just record when you have a wobble, time, place, day, what it was, identify the patterns. For the things that make you wobble, if you don't know it's the whole thing and indeed the individual things, then choose, because we have the power of choice to choose how we're going to respond rather than react. What energy and language could we use instead that's going to break our usual pattern of fear or anxiety or stress or worry or whatever it might be? And then the third thing, isn't it interesting that when we're in these situations, and we all find ourselves in these situations at times. Come on, a few weeks ago I had a car crash, right? I'm still in recovery and I'm a little bit more animated now, so it's cool. Other than this shoulder, because that's giving me some jip still. But, definitely a better energy, which is great. But we all have these things that hit us, and it's how we look at these things that really makes a difference. But have you noticed that when life does hit us, and I'm talking about like maybe your personal life or indeed your business life, when things hit us, we stop doing the stuff that used to bring us joy. Have you noticed that? This was what I went back to my client with, and they were talking about obviously everything, and we were talking about happiness and joy, and that there was just nothing like that. There's nothing to be joyful about, nothing to be excited about. They weren't feeling happy, and I hate it when people feel like that. It's heartbreaking, right? So I take that as, I need to show up and really help, because nobody deserves to feel like that. And we talked about happiness being, sometimes that's things and people and achievements, and it can be short-lived. But we talked about the joy in the journey. You might have heard me talk about this before. And I know for a fact, because I've worked with this client for so long, we've got an amazing relationship. I know the stuff that lights them up. I know the stuff they were doing on a regular basis that just brought absolute joy to them in different ways. And so I asked about some of these things as to whether they were doing them. And what do you think the answer was? No, they weren't. So the simple things, and these are things that they can absolutely, there's no extra requirements here. They don't have to go and shed loads of time. They were really simple things. And so we just identified those and said, right, again, over the next week whilst you're checking the wobbles, you're reframing some of the stuff that's causing you that pain at the moment, that suffering. Also just introduce some of the stuff that used to bring you joy, because that's the stuff that brings you balance. That's the stuff that makes all the difference. That when this stuff is kicking off over here, this can change our energy over here. This can help us show that our life is not just this catastrophe over here. We think it's a catastrophe and then we go, our whole life is a catastrophe. What we need to make sure is that in other areas of our life that we're still bringing the joy. That brings us the balance. It makes us feel a bit more whole. It makes us put things into perspective. So my client is going away, checking the wobbles, reframing what's causing the wobbles, and just bringing some joy back into their life. These things are not difficult. These things are very simple. Now, I'm not saying they're easy and they're just like overnight fixes, because you got to commit to it. You got to be intentional. You got to be in the moment with these things. But they can turn things around very quickly, and they're all within our control. And that's the beauty of, you know, what I've learned over the time. You can point fingers at, oh, I'm feeling like this because of this and this and this, but your feelings, you're in control of those more than we give ourselves credit for. And sometimes it's just a privilege to be able to give somebody some new perspective. And I thought, man, this must resonate with so many people out there. So, you know, whether you're a business owner, a senior manager, or whatever you are, and you're hitting tough times, just have a little look at the patterns. Have a look at what's causing it. Have a look how you can look at things differently. And just have a little look and audit. Are you doing the things that you love? And it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's swimming or fitness or making Lego or doing some gaming or spending time with your partner or your children or your friends or going for a walk or whatever it is. Go and reintroduce some of those things into your life, because they will make a massive, out of proportion difference, especially when things don't seem to be going well in one particular area of life. I hope this has helped. Hope you got some value from this. Privilege to share. And if you've got any questions, queries, if this has sparked something in you, then share below. You know, whether this has happened to you and how you've done it, or whether this is something that's really resonating right now and it's like you've got me thinking, I'm going to do this now. Share, because not only, it's not because I'm nosy, you're going to help other people by sharing. And if we can all learn from each other's lived experience, then I think that's a beautiful thing. So until next time, if you need any help with this, you know where I am, just like the clients that I work with already. You know, this is the sort of value I'm bringing week in, week out. And sometimes it's simple things in the face of what can feel like absolute catastrophes. And sometimes we just need that outside perspective and that knowledge and that lived experience to help people through it. So, absolute privilege. I will speak to you again soon.